Good evening, 4-3. Today we're going to start with lesson 14.6, using metric units of length. We're going to be measuring. Our focus questions tonight is how do you estimate and measure length? Well, here's a chart for the metric units of length. We have 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. 1 decimeter is equal to 10 centimeters. And 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters, and 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. So the higher we go here, the bigger the number, the bigger unit of measure. So we have millimeters, that is really, really tiny. And then we have something that's kilometers, and that is very, very long. That's like if you're going to go to on a trip somewhere and it's going to take a long time, it's going to be measured in kilometers. Where millimeters is like the size of the width of a dime. Here are some examples of those units of measure. The thickness of a dime would be measured in millimeters. That's very tiny. And about the length of this snake, how long it is, it's about 1 meter long. And if we were to go to New York City and go to 4 different city blocks, the measure of that would be in 1 kilometer. So that is pretty long. So we're going to look for the next 4 examples, and we're going to see what appropriate unit of measure would that be, what they would be. Would it be in millimeters, decimeters, centimeters, meters, or kilometers? The first example is the height of a house. How would we measure the height of a house? Would we measure it in millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, meters, or kilometers? Now remember, millimeters, very tiny. And even going up with the centimeters is very small. So we have to, kilometers, remember, is where we're going to be, it's going to be a very long trip to somewhere. So we would actually measure, the appropriate measure of the height of a house would be in meters. What about the length of a cat? Millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, meters, or kilometers? Now let's review again. Millimeters is very tiny. So a cat would be, the length of a cat wouldn't be a kitten, the length of a cat. We would not measure that in millimeters. We would measure this in centimeters. That would be an appropriate measurement for the length of a cat. What about the width of a sunflower seed? Millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, meters, or kilometers? Now, be careful, because if we go to a really big measurement like kilometers, that would be way too big. So think of something that was very tiny that we spoke about. Millimeters is very tiny. Remember the width of a dime? That's how we would measure that in millimeters. So the width of a sunflower seed wouldn't be in millimeters. All right, what about the distance traveled by plane? I bet that's where we wish we were all now, traveling to someplace nice and warm on a beach. If we're going to travel to Florida or travel someplace else, are we going to measure that distance in millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, meters, or kilometers? We are going to measure that in kilometers. That is a very long measurement. All right, first we're going to estimate, and then measure this feather. If we look at our metric units of length, we know that we would not measure this feather in millimeters. That would just be too tiny. And definitely not in meters or kilometers, because that's a measure of a longer distance. We would measure this feather in centimeters. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe this feather would measure about 6 centimeters. That is my estimate. But now we actually have a ruler, and we're measuring in centimeters. So look at how many centimeters this feather would be. Remember, we always need to start our beginning of our object at 0, and then at the end of the next tip of the object, see where it ends at. And this ends at 8 centimeters. So my estimate was kind of close. I said 6 centimeters, but it's really 8 centimeters long. How about this seashell? How many centimeters would this one be? I'm seeing, remember, we're starting the seashell or the object at 0, and then we're seeing where it's ending at. And it's ending at 4 centimeters long. All right, guys, let's see. Quiz time. The length of a sneaker. Are we going to measure that in millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, meters, or kilometers? And you could use your metric units of length chart to guide you. What about the height of a tree? Millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, meters, or kilometers? The width of a penny. Are we going to measure that in millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, meters, or kilometers? Doing good, guys. All right. Remember, we're not guessing. I'm hoping we're really trying to figure out each one of these problems. The next couple of examples we're going to see, questions, you're going to be measure each length to the nearest centimeter. In centimeters, how long is this leaf? In centimeters, how long is this beetle? You guys are my shining stars. Good job tonight. See you tomorrow.